so that we can have civil, honest but civil discourse on issues that are important to us during these times. And the first series, the first episode that we had, which was 2 months ago, was about immigration reform. Very well attended and some spirited discussion. Today's session is equally, if not more important than even the one that we had before, which is about education reform. As we all know, there have been lots of things on the table and off the table, and lots of swirling and lots of legislation passed recently regarding education reform. So we have a distinguished panel today that we're presenting for you, and I will ask our moderator to introduce those to you in a moment, but I would like to introduce him. Before I do that, I'd like to also say that this series is sponsored by the ACLU of Indiana. We are a not-for-profit, non-political organization that depends solely on memberships, gifts, and private monies. So if any of you are interested in being members that you are not, or you'd like to write a check, you can always do that for us. There's lots of literature out here for you. We encourage you to learn about what we do and how we do it during these very important times. I'd like now to introduce our moderator for today's panel discussion. His name is Matthew Tully. Matthew Tully has been a reporter with the Indianapolis Star covering government issues since 1992. But prior to that time, he started his career at the Gary Post-Tribune. He's a native of Northwest Indiana. And then he was a correspondent on Capitol Hill for a while with Congressional Quarterly for a number of years, and then chose to come back to Indiana, and we're glad he's here. He has, among other things, received awards from the Indiana Journalist as the Journalist of the Year, and is very well read, very well respected. So, Matthew, thank you, and welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. I moderated this program for a couple of years, a few years ago, and always had a great time. And this, to me, this is the most important issue out there, so I was very happy to be asked to come back for a day. Let me introduce the panel real quick. I apologize. I've read through their bios one time, so I'm probably going to have to stare down at the desk here. Teresa Meredith is the Vice President at the Indiana State Teachers Association, and she taught for more than 18 years in Indiana schools. Currently, she's an elementary teacher with Shelbyville Central Schools. She serves as chair of ISTA in the Service Corporation and an organizer for the Indiana Student Education Association. She received her bachelor's degree from Taylor University and has a master's in education from Olivet Nazarene University. Next to her, obviously, is Dr. Eugene White, the superintendent of Indianapolis Public Schools, the state's largest school district. He was a teacher, coach, and school administrator in the Fort Wayne Community Schools for 19 years. He was the first African-American high school principal in Fort Wayne Community Schools. He served as superintendent of the Metropolitan School District of Washington Township for 11 years, and in 2005, he was named superintendent of IPS. Dr. White is author of the book Leadership Beyond Excuses, The Courage to Hold the Rope, and he co-wrote a second book, Leading Schools of Diversity. Next to him is David Harris, the CEO and founder of the Mind Trust. Previously, before this, Mr. Harris served as former Mayor Bart Peterson's charter schools director, where he built one of the nation's most highly regarded charter schools offices. As director, Mr. Harris created a full-scale chartering operation from scratch. The initiative received the Harvard University prestigious American Government Award in 2006 and has been widely cited in the national media for its high level of rigor and transparency. Mr. Harris received College Summit's Let Talent Shine Award, as well as the Junior Achievement of Central Indiana's Indy's Best and Brightest Award. He's also been named one of the IBJ's 40 Under 40. Finally, we have Del Chu from the Indiana Department of Education, where he is an Assistant Superintendent of Legal, Policy, and Communications. Del Chu joined the Indiana Department of Education soon after Superintendent Tony Bennett took office in 2009. Today, he is closely involved in all aspects of the department's reform goals and initiatives. An expert in education policy, Chu is active in guiding the state's approach to accountability, teacher and leader quality, and school turnaround. He began his career in education as a 1997 Teach for America Corps member along the U.S.-Mexican border, and during his second year of teaching, he was recognized as the district's Teacher of the Year. He later became the founding principal of a high-performing urban charter school in Connecticut. So that's our panel. I have all kinds of questions for them, but you guys look like an inquisitive bunch, so please feel free to raise your hand at any point, and I would be more than happy to let you ask the questions. But I'll start with the first one, and I'm going to start with David Harris, if that's okay. The name of this forum is Who Wins and Who Loses. So David, who wins, based on what they did at the State House this year?
Well, I'm going to quibble with your question, if I may. Obviously, that's the name of the forum, but I think one of the things that has concerned me as we've gone through this education debate over the last several months is how contentious it's been. We seem to be more stratified than we've ever been when we've engaged in education reform debates. And one of the things that I want us to do as a community is to come together to have a robust conversation about what's the best thing to do for our kids, but try to do it in a way that doesn't kind of pit one group against another. And so I think that's something that we need to do better at. I do think this was obviously a very important session, and in my judgment, the thing that has come out of it that's going to be the most positive is the focus on teacher quality. I think we all agree that the most important ingredient to improving our schools are great teachers. You can have everything else in place. If you don't have great teachers, you're not going to be successful. And frankly, if you have great teachers, all the other things are much less important. Teacher quality drives everything. Research bears that out. Having 3 effective teachers in a row can virtually eliminate the effects of poverty. And now, because of both Senate Bill 1 and Senate Bill 575, we're in a position where we can reward excellent teachers, and the state has actually created a fund that it can put resources into rewarding excellent teachers. It's easier now to get rid of ineffective teachers. Districts won't have to go through the same cumbersome process that they've had to go through in the past to get rid of ineffective teachers. There's going to be meaningful evaluation, and I know that the New Teacher Project, which is one of the organizations that we helped bring to Indianapolis, is working closely with the Department of Education to develop an evaluation pilot program. We're no longer going to be allowed to lay off teachers when unfortunately districts have to lay off teachers based exclusively on seniority. The teacher quality is going to be a driving factor. And so I think what is most important coming out of this legislative session is the focus on teacher quality. The need to get more great teachers into the system, I think, has never been more apparent, and districts are going to have much better tools to do that.
Dr. White, when you look at what they passed this year, do you think it's going to help your district improve, and what parts of the legislation are you looking toward, to help you make the improvements that you want to make?
Well, I guess I should start by saying, answering the question to the panel, who wins and who loses, we don't know. All that is up in the air right now. I think there was nothing new passed in Indiana that has not been passed somewhere in this country. And the results in those places are not always as definitive as we would like to think they are. So we don't know yet who's going to win. Eventually, we hope the children win. When we look at what's coming out of the legislature for IPS, quite frankly, we are encouraged by 575 because there are some things we need to do differently in terms of how we deal with our teaching force, faculty, in a lot of areas, and there are some things we can correct there. I think our teachers appreciate having quality teachers in the classroom, and no one wants to protect people who are not competent or effective as classroom teachers. I think 575 will help us to make some very, very critical decisions, and will provide opportunities to have better teachers in the classroom for young people. I would be remiss not to say that we're concerned about the voucher bill that was passed, because quite frankly, with the number of students we've lost and with the dwindling revenue that we're receiving from the formula from the state, and that's driven by student population, we're very concerned that in addition to losing students and losing revenue, we could lose additional revenue by students who might go to parochial or private schools, and the limit of students we can lose in a given year could cost us at least close to $3 million. So we're concerned about that. We're also concerned about vouchers, simply because of all the school districts in the state of Indiana, IPS has been mostly impacted by charter schools, I should say, because we have 23 charter schools in our district. Now, because David did a good job with the mayor, we probably have some of the best charter schools in the country in terms of accountability, but we also have some concerns about some of those charter schools, and we also have concerns about practices that have been utilized that really penalize IPS that we have to deal with. So those are some things that we see right now from the legislature. We're hopefully optimistic that good things can come out of this, and so we'll just have to see in practice as we try to put this into play in IPS.
Teresa, I think both of them said that they hope the children win from these bills. Do you think that's the case?
Well, I think the long-term answer has yet to be seen, but I firmly believe that in the short term, students lose. When you cut $300 million from a budget, and then you come to a year where there is a budget surplus, and you don't replace that, and you begin offering additional programs that are going to drain more monies away from public schools, students lose. When you have massive layoffs like we had last year, and class sizes begin to climb, students lose. When you look at even more layoffs this year for some of our school districts, when you look at the change in the school formula, and you look at the number of layoffs that we're facing this year, students lose. When you cut English language learner funding, students lose. And when you cut early intervention funding to the point that it's been cut this year, students lose. So those are all short-term losses for us, but I think in the end we have to wait and see. I do believe teacher quality, the emphasis on that is crucial, and I agree with Dr. White in that, as a teacher, I don't want the teacher next door not to be top-notch. I want every single teacher that my own children have to be the very best. And I would hope that all of their teachers would be effective or highly effective, and if they weren't, perhaps there was a good program in place to bring them to that point. But teacher quality has definitely been a focus this year, and I think the disappointing part there, the other reason kids lose, is that although teacher quality has been a focus, there is absolutely no professional development money in this budget this year. It was cut completely. So how can you emphasize teacher quality, expect students to win, and not put anything into the professional development to make sure educators are the best prepared they can possibly be to teach the movement to the new standards that we're facing?
I think Dale was jumping out of seat over there, eager to respond. Would you like to respond to that, Dale?
Sure. First of all, I'd like to thank the ACLU for hosting this forum and having us here this morning. Definitely, certainly one of the most important topics, not only here in Indiana, but across the country. I think when it comes to, when you look at the most recent session in terms of education and the education package that was passed, it is very difficult from my perspective to look at any of the specific initiatives in isolation. I definitely take Dr. White's point that there really is nothing new in the sense that when you look at any of the individual packages, what's happened here in Indiana in terms of there is precedent in other states, in other words.